Welcome back, everyone. All right. So we're going to talk about the next project is going to sort of like be an interim project. We're going to do the bouncing ball again, but what I want to do is reinforce the idea of creating graphic symbols. So not movie clips. You got to be really, really careful with that. And I talked about that during Tuesday's Zoom session. So I wanted to create an interim project where we sort of go back, we address the bouncing ball again, squash and stretch, but we'll also talk about creating graphic symbols and show you why we use a graphic symbol because of the nesting. So we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to nest a symbol inside of another symbol, create the animation inside the nest, then come outside the nest and animate it again to create a more complex animation. What better way than to just do it? All right, so create a new project. Just thinking about it. There it is. Okay, full HD, 1920, 24 frames per second. Click OK. And everything's going really slow. Come on. Okay, there we go. All right, double click the hand to zoom in. All right, so we're going to do the same thing. We're going to do a bouncing ball project again, but we're also going to do it with making sure we're using graphic symbols, and then we're nesting. Okay, so just watch and see how it goes. All right, so an oval tool. Choose your color. I'll do green. Okay, hold down Shift, create a perfect circle, and I'm going to make a ball. And because I just like to also add a little shading and lighting just to give our 2D animations just a tiny little bit of depth and some sort of indication of light source and texture or substance. So I'm just going to highlight that little lower portion. It's hard to see on my video here, but when I change the color, you'll see. Okay, see how I change the color? Deselect and hold down to create that shade. Okay, get my brush tool, leave it on the paint normal mode, switch my color to white, and apply a highlight to the ball. Back to my selection tool, select everything, F8 on the keyboard, green ball. And as I said, under the type, make sure it says graphic. Now, if you're working from a shared laptop or a shared remote desktop, it'll default back to movie clip the whole time. And if you're working on your personal computer, once you switch it to graphic, it'll stay there. But make sure, it's really important that you do. So click OK. And now I have a graphic instance of green ball. Cool. All right, so now while this green ball is selected, I'm going to press F8 again. Okay. And I'm going to take this ball and nest it inside of another symbol. Now, the name of this dialog box is a little bit misleading. It says convert to symbol. It's not that I'm going to destroy this symbol and make it something else. Technically, when you do this in Adobe Animate, if you have a symbol selected and then you press F8 again, it's going to nest it. Okay, so I'm going to call it nested green ball bounce, because that's what I'm going to do inside this symbol. I want to create a simple sequence, a simple cycle of animation, which is just going to be the ball falling from the sky, landing on the ground, squashing and stretching, and then unsquashing and unstretching, and then going straight back up in the air. That's the cycle of animation that I want to create. Now that cycle could be anything. It could be a walk, it could be a run, it could be a fall, it could be the wheel turning on a vehicle. I mean, whatever you want, whatever you need a cycle of animation for, you're going to nest it and you're going to put it inside of a symbol. Okay. Click OK. Now, it doesn't look like anything has changed. However, a lot has changed. If we double click our symbol, you'll see that it's called nested green ball, but if I double click it and go inside of it, you can see I'm now inside of nested green ball, and I now have a brand new timeline. This is where I'll do my keyframe animation. I could do keyframe, I could do tweening, whatever I want in here. I'm just going to simply keyframe it. So F6 to add a keyframe, Shift down arrow on the keyboard, nudges down. F6, another keyframe, Shift, nudge, nudge, nudge down. And remember, we did this in the last assignment to create acceleration. F6, Shift, down, 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 down. F6, Shift, down, 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 down. F6, Shift, down, 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 down. F6, Shift, down, 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 down. Okay, so that creates the illusion of acceleration by creating more distance covered between keyframes. So the ball appears, and I'm pressing the Enter key here, the ball appears to speed up. Okay, now I need another keyframe for when the ball hits the ground. Okay, so there's the ball hitting ground, switch to a different tool. Q on the keyboard gets me my free transform tool, and Alt, or Option on a Mac, squash, just a little bit, and no Alt, stretch. Okay, do it again. F6, Alt, a little bit more squash, and no Alt, a little bit more stretch. And because this is an animation, let's do one more. F6, Alt squash, and a little bit more stretch. And this is an art, right? You'll get your style and what you want to do and how much squash and stretch you want to add to an actual object. And that'll also depend on what the object is made out of, as how much it will squash and stretch. Me, I want to make this like a water balloon, so I'm going to give it a lot of squash and stretch. Press the Enter key. See? Splat, splat, splat. Okay? And remember, to make it go up, I can highlight the frames, copy, paste, reverse. So click and drag all in one sweet motion. Click and drag, just like you're highlighting a word or a sentence in a text document. The Alt key, Alt, drag. And you notice I'm skipping a frame. And then while it's still highlighted, right click, reverse frames. Okay. The ball goes up, the ball goes down, the ball goes up, the ball goes down, the ball goes up. Nice. Very simple. Okay. So now this animation is embedded or nested inside of the nested green ball bounce symbol. Okay. It's safe, it's perfect, it's really just going to go up and down infinity, as long as we want it, as many times as we want. And that's why we put it inside of a symbol, because look what happens. I'm going to go back to scene 1, clicking here, and you'll see that if I press the Enter key, nothing happens, right? Well, how many frames are in here? 20. Okay, and that varies. I mean, typically you'll want to do it in multiples of 24. So 24, 48, 12, 6, things like that. But ultimately, this one has 20 frames, so the cycle is 20 frames. So let's click the 20th frame here, press F5, and you'll see my ball bounces one full time. Well, if I go to 40, press F5, and stretch the timeline out a little longer, it bounces twice. If I go to 60, F5, it'll bounce 3 times. Okay, and so on. So I could take it 80, F5, and so it'll just keep looping that animation that's inside the graphic symbol. Now, it might not seem super impressive to you right now, but trust me, this is really cool. And let's bring it to roughly about 4 seconds at 80, at 100 frames. Bounce, 2, 3, 4. See? Cool. Now, the beauty of why this is so awesome is, if I zoom out just a touch, slide back to the beginning of my timeline, and now that the animation is nested inside of here, I can still move it. I can take the ball off the stage, and it will bounce over here. But remember when I taught you tweening, is I can add a keyframe at the end, F6, and drag the ball over here. Click right here in between the name of the layer and some of these properties, which highlights the whole layer. Right-click in here and create the classic tween. And you can see that now this layer is tweened. So essentially, what it'll do is it'll tween the ball starting from stage right to stage left over the course of 100 frames. So it's a way of taking a simple animation and making it more complex. So that's your project. I would like you to create a bouncing ball inside of a nested symbol. You can keyframe the ball bouncing up and down inside the nested symbol, and then outside the nested symbol on the main timeline, I would like you to tween the ball from one side of the stage to the next. All right, that's your project. Just upload the FLA file when you're done, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks very much.